This is my second video about the 2025 Golden Shears. This is going to be a breakdown of what I am submitting. The previous video was entering and leading up to the submission, and the following video is going to be after the submission, leading up to the event and during, as well as the result. Well as the results, I suppose. My submission this time is essentially a second attempt at the Golden Shears, and my second attempt at my Golden Shears submission. It's almost funny, I don't think I mentioned last time that I was mentored partially by a previous winner of the Golden Shears who was an apprentice to a previous winner of the Golden Shears. Anyway, my submission is in essence the same, just done better, and in other ways it's done right. It's a tuxedo with a slightly country flair, though this time I am rather fortuitous that I can take advantage of the fact that it's the Golden Shears' 50th anniversary, which is the golden anniversary. The jacket has a silk facing and peak lapels, as you should expect. The last time the lapel was just ugly, and this time I think just the shape is much better, and it's much better done. The size and shape, all of it. The facing is actual silk facing this time, rather than a Duchess silk satin. Technically it's not actually silk either times, but that's not the point. Looking back though, the Duchess satin itself wasn't an issue, rather just the execution of it. I hand sewed the lapel and the facing this time, as silk facings theoretically should be, and it's got actual damet inside between the lapel and the canvas as well. Even though it was, well, both times it's a sculpted facing, technically, this time the lining is also hand sewn. I hand sewed the sleeve seam and shoulder seam again. I skipped hand sewing the seat seam this time, even though I technically did it not correctly last time anyway, but with the shoulders and sleeves I didn't necessarily want to leave anything to chance for the technical submission wise, or the technical adjudication wise. I kept the slanted pockets and the double vents. I was also considering putting a ticket pocket over here, on top of here, to go with the slanted pocket, but I think in the end I never got around to really making a decision before I put the face and the lining on. The outbreast pocket is quite simple again. The Milanese buttonhole is still there, it's just done a little bit better this time. Link button closure again, but this time instead of mother of pearl buttons, they are silk covered, and in this particular case they are gold rimmed as well. 5 buttons on the cuff, which is the same again, but this time it carries a little bit more significance as the 50th anniversary, also silk covered. Interestingly, the cuffs, the sleeve, I put a cuff there, which I realized shortly after my submission last time that since I put a false slanted cuff on the trousers, I should have put a cuff on the sleeves. And when I went to check out my 23 submission after the technical judging for networking purposes, it was iterated to me by the chairman that I couldn't make any alterations or make any changes to my submission, and the example he gave was adding cuffs to the sleeves. So, well, I've done it now. I've done it this time. The bottoms are tartan. Mine, or one of my tartans anyway, and they are actually trousers instead of trews or a kilt or anything like that. I put English pleats on the front just because I felt that slightly alluded to country wear, although double pleats or pleats in general are quite a prevalent feature in evening wear as well. I just thought it potentially alluded to the concept of a kilt, which, as we all know, it's half made up of pleats. I wanted to introduce pattern matching, or I wanted to introduce a pattern to my submission this time for the benefit of pattern matching. It can look very satisfying when it's very well done, which is why I did the smart thing and put a grosgrain braid all the way down the side seam, completely interrupting the pattern. Anyway, it is fully hand-stitched both sides this time, which certainly took its time. I just enjoy making Dax top waistbands, which is why I did it again. I matched the pattern as well as I could this time, or I matched the pattern as good as I could as well, and the buttons are basically the same on the jacket. And button extension closure, it has a gold rim as well. Straight pockets, zip fly, slanted permanent turn-ups again, just because I thought it's a potentially very uncommon feature, and if I think of what should be a Golden Shears submission, it shouldn't be anything standard. The brace buttons I put inside, which is a new feature from last time. I used it as sort of an experiment. I got a bunch of buttons covered with the silesia, so, well, like I say, they're an experiment to see whether they're potentially better than using just typical horn buttons and plastic brace buttons. Last time I had wanted to accompany my submission with a cummerbund made of the same Duchess satin, or rather just the same fabric as the silk facing, or rather the facing at that time. But I realized I had a fairly unique opportunity. I made a morning dress, or I made a dress waistcoat, the sort you generally associate with white tie and white Marcella. It typically features 4 buttons, but in this case, I added 5 golden buttons, as you might expect for the 50th anniversary of the Golden Shears. I was borrowing a set of gold buttons without asking for an alternative project, which is something I've wanted to show off for a little while. Just the gold buttons on a waistcoat. The shirt isn't mine, I made the waistcoat. But I don't think they're gold. I think they're not even gold plated, probably just pyrite or something. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard model of waistcoat. Funniest thing is, I was basically halfway through, or most of the way through, making the pockets when I decided they weren't good enough. They didn't look good at all. And when I was about halfway through making them, before that, I took an Instagram break to scroll through my feed of whatever's been recently posted, I suppose. And somebody had posted a picture of the method of making welted pockets that I was at that moment unfamiliar with, and it just completely clicked with me how to do it. So at the point that I'd almost finished making the pockets, I decided, nope, take it all off, start again. So, well, it was a pain, but it was absolutely worth it, because personally I think these pockets look amazing, and it was good to learn, or good to see how to do the pockets that way. Something I've heard is, or something I've been told, is that it's not how something goes wrong, it's about how you put it right. In my opinion, it's a little about how it goes wrong, but still, it's a good way of thinking. Almost funnier still is, while I was making this, I was watching The Godfather for the first time, and I realized it's the same, or at least it's similar to the waistcoat Marlon Brando was wearing in the opening scene. They say you don't need to, or you shouldn't, supply any accessories with your garments. But last time I had made a bow tie. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Last time I had made a bow tie out of the same Duchess satin as the lapels. So I wanted to do the same this time, but I remembered that originally they obviously weren't going to tie a bow tie the 2 to 3 times that the model was going to have to put on my garment, was going to have to put on my submission. So they sort of tied or folded the bow tie into the approximate shape that a bow tie should be, and they used a safety pin to clip it on and off each time they put it on. And it just didn't look good at all. I mean, honestly, the Duchess satin, it might have had something to do with why it looked bad, but this time I've learned my lesson. So I've made a hand-sewn I've made a hand-sewn pre-tied bow tie that they can use to easily hook it on and off, that looks like an actually properly tied bow tie. The distinct courtesy of having to make an ascot cravat in the space of a few hours, a few weeks ago, I learned that when cutting ties and bow ties, you have to do it on the bias. So theoretically, that one is almost done more correctly than, well, this bow tie and the previous bow tie as well. But interestingly, I could have gotten a bow tie made out of the silk facing by the same people that did the covered buttons, but again, that would have been it would have just been a bow tie that looked like a pre-tied bow tie. Anyway, that is my submission for the 2025 Golden Shears. I will be submitting it, I'll be submitting it sometime on the submission, before the submission deadline, or no, whatever the submission days were. And, well, hopefully I'm a finalist, otherwise this is going to be a very weird and a bit self-aggrandizing video. But the following video, hopefully, will be the event and the outcome, be that whatever that may be. Anyway, I suppose I wish me luck.